Hello, my name is John, and today I will be taking you on a magical tour through ancient history. Today I will be telling you about Song Tang China and a little bit way. As you can see, we have the wonderful Yang Di, who helped build the canal, which later influenced the dynasties that we will be talking about. Alright, I hope you guys have a fun time. I'm going to hand you off to one of my co-anchors, John.
Yes, thank you, John. So the Grand Canal is 1,100 miles long, or for you Brits, 1,800 kilometers. It stretches from Yongzhou in the south, through the Yangtze River, the Huanghe, and it reaches to Chang'an and to near Beijing in the north, or what would become Beijing later. So the main purposes of it were to connect the north and south, as the south was much more productive agriculturally, and the north had a bunch of armies because it was fending off nomadic attacks and they needed to eat things. So that was the purpose of the Grand Canal. Also, Yang Di, the emperor who made it in the Sui dynasty between 604 and 609, was kind of nuts, so he just wanted to build really big things, and the canal made sense to build. It used millions of laborers, many of whom died along the way while they were building it, which is unfortunate, but then he was a nut job and he didn't really care about people's lives. So also, alongside the canals, ran two highways and a line of trees. So the highways were really important because they allowed for communication over the entire empire, which was very a wise decision, surprisingly, considering Yang Di actually killed his father. He was a nut job. Well, he made a great canal there. So moving on, we'll talk about the growth of cities. So in the Tang capital of Chang'an, it was the largest city in the world at that time, and really the largest city up until the Industrial Revolution. Its population was 2 million, and it was very stable because it was very important to the empire because it contained the restricted imperial city, the imperial city where the emperor and only he and his administrators could get in, and there they ran the country, basically collecting taxes, doing all of those administrative, bureaucratic things that people like to do. So the city was divided into quarters where commoners could live outside the walls. There were foreign emissaries that could live in one quarter. Local aristocrats, bureaucrats could live in another quarter. I believe there were 108 blocks of residential quarters, and they were divided up into quarters by walls. 10% at this time of the population was in an urban environment, and this was more than in any other region at that time. Hangzhou was the capital in the Southern Song dynasty. It was also large, not quite so. Population of 1.5 million. It was renowned by Marco Polo, among others, as being an incredible city. It was, like Marco Polo's hometown of Venice, full of canals and bridges to go over those canals. It was really fantastic because they had bathhouses which people cleaned themselves in, and it was really prosperous. Both of these were also helpful in trade because they were near to the canals and the Silk Road. So let's move on to John.
Thank you, John. I'd like to, first, I'd like to start off by talking to you guys about my wife is handling the papers, and she is an awful person. I'm going to talk to you guys about the plague, which entered the Tang Dynasty. And, look at there, that's my wife again. Just not doing a good job. The plague entered, and luckily, because the peasants did not live in the main walled part of the city, it did not spread out of that, and so the plague was able to contain, also because of the moreover cleanliness in the irrigation system. The irrigation system, let's lead into that, helped people specialize in crops, such as tea. We can see a lovely tea plant right there, not illustrated by my wife. Thank you, and now I'm going to pass it off to John.
Thanks, John. The big picture importance of why this interaction of technology is that this entire Chinese Renaissance and Golden Age is because of this interaction, which means that the examples of irrigation, the Grand Canal, and the expansion of cities is what led to this Golden Age, and partially what led to this political stability of the period. Going on to the next slide, some questions you might have. So what's the purpose behind the Grand Canal? So, like my co-worker John previously said, it was to connect the north and south and help unify the country as a whole, and to connect the armies that needed food fighting the northern nomads with the southern supply of food. Another question you might be thinking is, why did the Chinese cities explode during this period? Well, to go back to the canal, that connection between the fertile south and the cities and most of the cities in the north is what led to the cities exploding, plus the political stability of the period with a strong bureaucracy let farmers be more effective. Thanks.
So now let's move on to some fun facts. Thank you, John, for those interesting questions.
Thank you, John.
Yes, so first of all, let's talk about those bathhouses, eh? So in Hangzhou, in Song Dynasty, China, they had a lot of bathhouses. They had cold and warm water, which was really incredible, and all of the people in there bathed like once or twice a month, which, if you're not familiar with medieval times, I mean, that wasn't really common. In Europe, they thought that bathing killed your good spirits and made you poisoned by demons and things. So they weren't real clean over there in Europe, but in China, they were fantastic, and that was one of the things that allowed the plague not to cause so many issues. So bathhouses were really fantastic. Another thing, trees. As I may have mentioned, Young Di, when he was building the Grand Canal, planted willow trees along the entire length of the Grand Canal. Why? Nobody knows, but he was a nutjob, as previously stated. Another nutjobby thing he did was he had people, when he was building his palaces, he didn't have enough trees, so he forced labourers to go out, dig up adult-sized trees, move them all the way to the palace, and then replant them in his palace gardens just so he could have trees. So again, he wasn't the most sound of mind person, but you know, he did build the canal, so that was pretty good. So with regards to the Buddha statues, under the Tang Dynasty, especially Empress Wu, large Buddha statues of Buddha were carved into many mountainsides, as the class may have noticed previously with that 15-story or 20-story sized Buddha. There were many of those throughout the empire under Empress Wu. So now let's end this off with...
Alright guys, here's our bibliography. It's very bibulous, and I'd like to thank John and John, and I hope you guys enjoyed our tour. This is John, from John, signing off. Thank you, bye.